This is the download recap from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. The download recap is brought to you by Podscribe. You can find out more at podscribe.com. Let's get into the week's news. Before we kick off the news proper, just a quick heads up. The podcast show London is right around the corner. This year, Sounds Profitable has partnered with Number 8, Cats Digital, Claritas, Barometer, Locked On, and AdLarge for Podtails and Cocktails, a happy hour at Bubba Oasis. Due to venue capacity, there is a waitlist link you could sign up at, which I have put in today's show notes, but Sounds Profitable partners and clients of the sponsoring companies are given priority access to the event. If you would like to sign up, I've included the link, and we'll see you in London soon. In a nation of ad avoiders, one medium breaks through. UK audiences tend to be ad avoidant in their content. Sound Insight's founder Ben Robbins attributes this to the BBC's long history of zero commercial advertising, shaping audiences' baseline content expectations. Quote, "The effect runs deeper than simple preference. UK listeners have developed what might be called a BBC baseline, an unconscious standard against which all audio is measured. When an ad breaks the flow of a podcast, it isn't experienced merely as an interruption. It's experienced as a violation of what good audio is supposed to feel like." End quote. The 2023 UK advertising landscape study finds 47% of UK adults cannot recall a single brand from an advertisement they've seen or heard in the past week. 79% of UK podcast listeners recall an ad they heard in the past week. Taken in context with the statistic 43% of UK adults are listening to podcasts monthly, that 79% is not a niche finding. Robbins frames it as a mass market result, showing podcasting is delivering results to an audience that, historically, should be resistant to its ads. Podcasts also prove to be functionally gender neutral when it comes to audience reach. Podcast ad recall scores 79% for men, 80% for women. This mirrors the findings of the U.S. podcast landscape study, suggesting that podcasting's mass appeal across genders is not unique to one country. As podcast audiences embrace video, publishers shift their strategy towards personality-led shows and hybrid revenue. A new Reuters Institute report blends audience research and media manager interviews to examine the evolving news podcast ecosystem. Though video podcasting has grown rapidly, the report finds strong overlap between its audiences and audio podcast listeners, suggesting the same consumers access podcasts differently in different contexts. A quote from senior research associate and report author Nick Newman, quote, "Video is no longer an optional extra for podcasting. It's become central to how shows are discovered, distributed, and monetized. But that doesn't mean audio disappears. It means publishers have to think much more carefully about what each format is for." End quote. Exclusive: Amazon Music delivers video podcasts. Pod News reports Amazon Music launches video podcast this week for US, iOS, and Android users. The app will use HLS video, as Pod News reports, quote, "including support for HLS multivariate playlists via an alternate enclosure in RSS," end quote. Since I'm feeling generous, here's another quote. A quote from Amazon Music spokesperson speaking to Pod News, quote, "In today's rapidly evolving podcast landscape, video has emerged as an increasingly essential format for creators and their audiences. With more consumers engaging with video podcasts of their favorite shows, Amazon Music is introducing an integrated video podcast experience for customers, making it simpler for customers to watch a selection of their favorite podcasts without leaving the app. This early experience will help us gather valuable customer feedback to shape and enhance the experience," end quote. Video podcast launched on Amazon's Art19 platform and will expand to more partners this summer. The piece notes there is no private API to submit video to podcast music, and it is not charging podcast creators or networks to access video distribution. For our final top story, expanding our video ecosystem with new partners and supported platforms. Libsyn, Podigy, Audioboom, Audio Memes, and Podspace now support the Spotify distribution API. Creators on those platforms can distribute video podcasts directly to Spotify and monetize eligible content via the partner program. Spotify is also taking another step towards platform-agnostic video distribution later this year, as it has announced upcoming support for Apple Podcasts HLS video tech. Once launched, podcasters hosting on Spotify will be able to distribute video content to both Spotify and Apple Podcasts simultaneously, including support for Apple Podcast video monetization. As for the rest of the news, this week's webinar presentation of Trust and Attention, Why Sports Media Wins and How Brands Prove It with Tom Webster and Brian Goldmark is now live on Sounds Profitable, including both the report and the webinar recording. With a newly announced partnership, brands can now combine Signal Hill Insights Brand Lift studies with Magellan AI's exposure and performance data for precise audience matching, strong control groups, and reliable measures of campaign impact on awareness, favorability, and intent. Podcast News Daily covers the PRX 2025 report, including CEO Carrie Hoffman's annual letter. Hoffman notes that even as federal funding cuts challenge public media, PRX is accelerating its transition towards, quote, a digital-first infrastructure for vibrant public media, end quote. BBC Sound's Q1 2026 report finds it had a 5% increase in plays year over year, totaling 718 million plays of radio, podcasts, and music content. And finally, the UK government confirms, quote, podcast and other audio publishing activities, end quote, will join the SIC 2026 framework. And Audio UK has a release explaining why this is a big deal. That was the download recap brought to you by Sounds Profitable and Podscribe. I know I go through the stories fast, so just a reminder, there is a link in your show notes that'll take you to everything I just talked about. You can also subscribe to the newsletter version of the download while you're there. Today's issue was written and produced by myself, Brian Barletta, Molly DeMillier, and Tom Webster. And as always, I end with a special thanks to you for joining me as I brought you all the top news you might have missed in podcasting from this week. Robot.
Download complete.